Thank you everybody for being here. Today, we are joining together as state and local elected officials, along with our business community here in my district and the surrounding area. And we are calling on the governor to restore local control to decisions being made with respect to COVID-19 regulations. The reason that we come here today and ask for this is because there have been, over the last several months, arbitrary and capricious rules coming out of Albany, specifically the second floor of the New York State Capitol and the governor's office, in consecutive executive orders that are very unclear. Rulings are coming out that are unclear, they don't make sense. For example, the fact that apparently restaurants cannot serve alcohol without serving a meal, but that meal can't be chicken wings. That's one example. Other arbitrary rules coming out that if you travel to or come back to New York from certain states, you have to quarantine for 14 days. But apparently that does not include people attending the Video Music Awards in New York City yet. So these rules put together, many are not based in science, and that is a deep concern of businesses across the state of New York as we try to reopen and resume business. This has plunged us into one of the most devastating economic times in our state and nation's history, and as we try to rebuild and reopen, we need clear rules, and they need to be determined by local leaders at the county and town level elected by the people. We are further joining today and speaking out because it seems it's been well documented that there's selective enforcement of these rules. So not only are some of these rules are very unclear, but they're selectively being enforced. And in fact, in some downtown communities and restaurants, there have been businesses targeted 3 and 4 times a day by individuals working on behalf of the state of New York that may not even be working in their department. So it could be somebody from the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities or the Department of Transportation that have now been shifted and are working outside of their civil service title as enforcers for the state liquor authority. Now again, every business represented here today, and there are hundreds of them represented by our chambers of commerce, are looking to comply because they care about their employees, they care about the communities they serve, they care about their customers and clients. But for them to be targeted where people writing fines will be visiting them 3 and 4 times a day, that's completely unacceptable. That is harassment when you have someone come into your establishment, not buy anything, and look for violations, and seeing none, come back 2 hours later, look for more violations, seeing none, come back hours later. That's not something that we are willing to accept on behalf of the good people of the state of New York. Finally, I want to thank, in my district, our Chambers of Commerce presidents, as well as many business leaders, and my good friend Anthony Picarillo, who's a Suffolk County legislator here today. We have joined together as a small business task force for the community. We attempted at this moment to hold an event, a public forum, where businesses could testify and talk about the problems they're facing with these rules that are coming out. Out of hundreds of businesses that this was emailed to, and about 4 dozen conversations that the task force members had with local businesses who were impacted greatly, no one was willing to speak out of fear of retribution from the governor. And I'll say that again. About 48 businesses were fearful to speak out to their community, to their government officials publicly, because they were afraid of retribution from their government. These are not these are fears that have been realized and seen in the newspaper across the state. These are things they see, neighborhood businesses being targeted, and they're fearful that as they're trying to feed their families and do the right thing for their communities, they cannot speak out. So for those businesses, we joined today to give them a voice. With that, I'm going to turn this over to my partner here on Main Street in county government, Anthony Picarillo.
Thank you, Assemblyman Smith. Thanks everyone for coming today. Contrary to the governor's beliefs, business owners aren't sitting on piles of money. They need to reopen at full force in a safe and effective manner. They need to put food on their table, they need to keep a roof over their head, and they need to save for their children's education. And these arbitrary rules coming from Albany are stopping them from doing that. Not only do they serve people in this community, they participate in local food drives, they donate food to our men and women in uniform, they help us out with neighborhood cleanups, and what's happening to them is very simple. Unfortunately, We're just one voice, but when we stand together like this, we need to send a message that's loud and clear to Governor Cuomo and the people in Albany that we need to open up in a safe and effective manner at 100%. We don't understand how big box stores can be open with thousands of people going in and out of there every day, but you can only have 10 to 15 people in a hair salon. If you sit at a bar, you can't order food and have a drink. I mean, these rules are really going to put businesses out. They're going to cost local people jobs, and we're going to have more people on the government dole than we should have. I think our job as elected officials is to pave the way to get people off the dole and back to work. And if these rules from Albany don't lighten up, we're going to be in serious trouble in the months to come. So I want to thank Assemblyman Smith again and all my other colleagues in government and Chamber of Commerce presidents for being here today. And hopefully we can get more clear and concise message from Albany. Thank you. Thank you.
Now I'm going to take a moment to introduce and allow my colleagues in government to say a few words, and then what I'm going to do is introduce our colleagues here in the community representing our chambers of commerce, hundreds of small businesses to speak, and then we have some businesses that were brave enough to speak out. I would ask them to speak. So I'm going to turn it over to one of my colleagues, Assemblyman Mike Montesano, representing Nassau County. Thank you for coming, Mike.
You're welcome, Doug. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here. I represent the 15th Assembly District in Nassau County. And you know, one of the things the governor has to consider is local governments have a better feel for what's going on in their towns and in their counties, how the businesses operate, what the needs are, what the dangers are. And they should be able to set these regulations for the reopenings, for increasing the population that go into these restaurants, go into these stores. Everywhere I go, both in Nassau and the time I get to visit even Suffolk last weekend, I was out east twice, and everybody's in compliance. Everybody's wearing their mask. The restaurants are providing outdoor seating, indoor seating. As we see right here across the street from us, there's a diner that has a nice outdoor seating array. They know what they're doing. They're following the regulations. What the governor doesn't seem to understand, simply because he's never had a job outside of government or run a business, is what it takes to keep a business afloat and to take care of your employees and your family, but also they're part of the tax base. These businesses are generating taxes for local governments and for the school districts. As these businesses falter, so does the tax base, and then we can't deliver the services that we're supposed to be delivering. So I call upon the governor today to start realizing that local governments matter. They have a handle on what's going on. They have a say. They're elected by the local population, and he should really, at this point, start turning matters over locally. Thank you.
Next up, I'd like to invite my friend and colleague to the east of me, Assemblyman Joe Distefano. Assemblyman Distefano, like me, represents a part of the Patchogue community and recently attended a meeting in the community to discuss the issues happening in Patchogue. So I'd like to invite him to talk about that and to address you.
Thank you, Assemblyman Smith. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe Distefano. I represent the 3rd Assembly District, as Doug said. It's just to the east of here. A couple weeks back, I attended the Patchogue Chamber of Commerce meeting, and I was greeted with about 25 local businesses on Main Street that told me that the state liquor authority sent in some people 2 and 3 and 4 times a day, just as Doug said, to harass them to make sure they were in compliance. Now, we all know that the businesses who have taken it on the chin for the last 6 months by not being able to open up and not being able to serve their patrons, now they're being harassed when they do open up. All they want to know is, what phase are we in? We've been to 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now we're in phase 4, but where do they fit into phase next? When does it happen? We got diners, we got restaurants, we got businesses, we got Villa Lombardi's, which is right down the street from us. 50 people. They could sit 1,000 people in that place, and if you went with the half, you'd have 500. Why are they not allowed to open up with the 500 that they're allowed to have based on the governor's rules of 50%? It doesn't make any sense. We just had a very successful lobbying for the bowling. Those of you who follow that, we were able to keep the pressure on the governor, and we wanted to make sure that bowling was reopened. 2 weeks ago, bowling reopened. We got to keep the pressure on. The Republican conference, for the last several weeks and probably months, has lobbied the governor's office to We've been trying to get them to restrict the executive powers. Our members on the other side of the aisle are afraid to for fear of retribution. They will not stand up to the governor like our conference will. We have no fear of saying we want them to take away the executive powers, but they won't. So keep the pressure on, let these businesses open. As our colleagues have said, they know what they're doing. Give them the local control that they need to make sure that we don't have more of an epidemic of unemployment and other things that are going to hurt our communities worse than what they already are. So thank you, Doug, for putting this together. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Next up, I'll have another one of my colleagues in the state Assemblyman, John Mickulin, also representing Nassau County. The primary purpose of this press conference is to call on the governor to restore local control to the decisions we made. You're welcome to join us, but yes. Next up, we're calling up Assemblyman John Mickulin, who represents Bethpage. John?
Thank you so much, Assemblyman Smith. I'm John Mickulin, and I represent the 17th Assembly District in Nassau County. First and foremost, I want to say we want everyone to be safe, but we can operate businesses safely. The COVID crisis, our businesses have really lost a ton of money and a ton of economic prosperity because of this crisis. And you know something? We follow the rules. We have been continually working, but it is time to get everybody back, and it is time to get everybody back to work, and we need clear and concise rules and regulations. We don't need the confusion that's coming out of Albany. And you know something? This is a very large state with different regions, and each region is different. It is best to put this via local control. And if we do that, our local government will work with the state government, but it will serve the people of the communities in the state of New York best. And we can generate the businesses needed, and we can have our local businesses survive, which that is what we want. They do so much for us. They do so much for our community. We can't let them down, and what has been going on in Albany is we are letting them down. It is time for us to say to the governor, we want local control. We will work with the state, but we need clear, concise rules. We want to keep everybody safe, but we need to get our businesses back, and we need to get our economy booming again. Thank you.
Next up, I would like to invite Suffolk County Minority Leader Tom Silmy up to say a few words. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start out by thanking my friend Doug Smith, who frankly has been an extraordinarily effective leader when it comes from issues from energy costs to school funding to most recently restoring the tribute and light in celebration or in recognition of 9/11, and now, of course, bringing this issue today to light. The message is quite simple to Governor Cuomo. I'm here as a former business owner, as a former Chamber of Commerce president. I understand what these businesses are going through, and I can just envision, metaphorically, they're all in deep water, ladies and gentlemen. They're struggling to keep their nose above water. They're struggling to survive. And it seems like every time they come up for air, there's the governor to push them back down again. They are being targeted by an overzealous regulatory regime that, quite frankly, seems more interested in revenue generation than in helping these businesses survive. So the message to Governor Cuomo is to stand down, Governor, and let our local officials work with businesses in our area to do business and to do it safely and to get our economy back up and running. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And I do think it's important to continue to hear from our local elected officials, because the local elected officials at the town and county and village level are elected by the people. They shop in local stores. They talk with local businesses every single day. Their constituencies are much smaller than the 19.5 million people across the state. They work with businesses day in and day out. With that, I would like to turn it over. We're here in the town of Islip, and I'd like to turn it over to our town of Islip receiver of taxes, who's Alexis White, who has joined us here today to add a few comments.
Important matter that needs to be addressed, and we've been addressing it from Patchogue to Sayville and now in Holbrook, and we've seen cases after case of just arbitrary kind of rules coming out. In fact, as Doug had talked about, people traveling to certain states and then coming back and having to quarantine. One of the arbitrary rules is if you can say you're an essential worker, you don't have to quarantine. So what dictates who is essential and who is not essential? We really need some guidelines to be able to follow. Or better yet, let's be grateful that we still live in a democracy and we have the ability to say, I think that situation is unhealthy for me, and so therefore I'm not going to participate. We have the ability to wear masks and to take steps to make sure that we're safeguarding one another, and I think that's good enough. I don't think we need the governor telling us what it is we can do. We operate on a daily basis as a county and a town, and with representatives from the state giving us guidance, and I think we do it just fine on a daily basis without the governor telling us what we should be doing on a daily basis to open our business and to run and be successful. Let's not forget that each of us contribute to the tax base, and so as it was stated earlier, when a business closes down and it's vacant, that causes a burden to the county, and the county then has to pick up that vacant lot if the taxes haven't been paid. That causes extra burden on all of us who do pay taxes. These are important things to know and important things to remember, and it's important that we take back our local control and we set healthy guidelines and we enforce them so that our businesses can open and function and create a wonderful environment for our residents. And so it's important to keep the pressure on the governor to make sure that he understands we know what we're doing. That's why we're elected. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We're also fortunate to be joined today by a town of Hempstead councilman, Dennis Dunn, who's joined us from Nassau County to also echo these sentiments. Thank you so much, Dennis, for being here.
Thank you. It's all about leadership and a lack of leadership. Our governor has set some rules down, and I don't know if he's talking to the people that are making the rules because they keep changing it. Now, if you're in a football game and they say a forward pass is no longer legal today, and then they say halftime, oh, okay, they got the ball, so it's going to be legal. You can't change the rules in the middle of the game. It appears, but it sounds like, if you heard what I heard, other than the jet going over, they keep coming back the same day until he got you. It sounds like a money grab. I'm going to keep coming back there until I can get them and find them. That's what it sounds like. It doesn't sound like, leadership means teaching them how to do it right. All right, listen, you got that wrong today. We're going to give you just a simple note that next time, if you keep doing it wrong, then we're going to have to find you. You can't. You want people to shop locally. That's what chambers of commerce are for. We say shop locally. That's our mantra, shop locally. Because we want to put the food on the table for the people that are paying for the uniforms for our little leagues. They're paying for the church for they're hungry. Paying for all the things that go on in our community. That's what the chambers of commerce do for us. We want to beat them up and steal their money and do gotchas. So Governor, have your people teach the people how to do it right. Not gotcha. Not go and do a money grab on each of these communities. It's wrong to do it that way. If you want to do as we are asking you to do, we had a press conference this morning about sports. There's the New York State Public High School Athletic Association has 8 sections. Suffolk County's in Section 11. Nassau County's in Section 8. They both have different rules. Why? Because it shouldn't be that way, but it is, because the governor said you do what you want. Maybe he meant, and we don't know because it's being misinterpreted everywhere, every school district has a choice to opt in or not, into playing or not. That's what we heard this morning. Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe he meant, well, stop with the maybes. If you're going to be a coach, governor, or a leader, Lead. Tell us what you really, really want, what you really, really need. Local rule is they know what they need. They know what the stores need and have to have. And if they're doing it wrong, take them aside and say, hey, listen, you're doing this wrong. You don't see the coach take the guy's wallet out of his pocket and start taking money. No, teach them. So you need leadership, Governor. Please provide it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you so much. And as we heard an airplane fly over from MacArthur Airport nearby, it's actually a welcome sound because that means that we are getting back to a sense of normalcy. So thank you for that, Dennis, as well. Next up, I'd like to bring up someone who here in Holbrook would be our mayor if we had a village. Rick Amarati, the president of our Chamber of Commerce, who has been president for, I think, 21 years. Yeah. He and his board, and Kevin Guilfoyle's vice president is joining us as well. They have built this downtown. For years, they have spent building this downtown and making sure business can thrive. So, Rick, thank you for being here.
Talk about a public unmasking, huh? Anyway, welcome to beautiful downtown Holbrook. To my left is a tree that we planted 20 years ago that was no taller than that flagpole right there. And I don't know, this year we had a meeting with our board and we don't even know if we're going to be able to do holiday lights this year. We took a meeting with our carnival and, we want to talk a little bit about how this has affected the chambers and certainly how it's affected our businesses. When I got word that we were going to flatten the curve, like most of you, I signed on. That was what, 6 months ago. I was having lunch at one of my favorite restaurants, Irish Times over here, when I saw the news come across the screen and they let us know that we were going to flatten the curve and shut business down. So I figured, okay, 2 weeks, a week, whatever, get it done. Serious pandemic, I understand. Here we are now 6 months later, and can anybody define flattening the curve? Because the governor's office has not let me know. And I saw Dr. Fauci throw out the first pitch, and that was definitely flattening the curve. But right now, I have a lot of frustrated business owners in our community. They're really, really suffering. We have tried as a chamber to help people, but we're not getting any communication from the government. Thank God for the leadership in Assemblyman Smith. He has been fantastic starting this task force, along with our sister chambers, all with similar concerns that you'll hear. And also Anthony Picarillo, our new county legislator, who's also done a fantastic job. And boy, did he pick a great time to enter into this business. Good job. We're happy to have these guys. So I stand here before you, exclamation point on every statement that's made here. I just want to let people know that our chambers are very frustrated because we're not getting the word from the governor's office about the science. We're not getting word about what's going to happen with business. And quite frankly, when I got to hear people go into a restaurant and they're limited an hour, otherwise their waiter can't serve them anymore, this is crazy. Where you see the plexiglass. I mean, it's just a bit much over the top. So again, I want to see business restored. I want to have the ability as a local chamber of commerce to have that interaction with government, to be that conduit between the state and the local business community. Certainly town of Islip, town of Brookhaven, all great hands-on-deck people. Alexis, we know what we would get with them. Let us have our own voice in our own towns. Nobody knows our communities like we do. Thanks for coming over.
Thank you so much, Rick. I think that's an important distinction from here. It's 198 miles to the state capitol building. I do that drive often. And we do need people that are in our communities making these decisions. Next up, I'm going to bring up Lenore Paprocki, the president of the Middle Country Chamber of Commerce. If you would like to see.
Assemblyman, Legislator Picarillo. I've been on this task force since the very beginning with Assemblyman Doug Smith and Anthony Picarillo. I have to tell you, I also sit on a board with Brookhaven Town, their business task force reopening. What bothers me the most is that every single business, and I'm speaking for Middle Country area, which is Selden, Center Reach, Lake Grove, and the surrounding areas, we knew we had to shut down to flatten that curve. We knew what our goal was. Well, as Rick just said, 6 months later, what's the goal now? We're at 0.0 something at this point. The percentage is so low. We've done everything. My businesses are fighting. They're struggling. These are small business owners. Who are your neighbors? They're your family. They're your friends. We have to take control. We can't let this keep coming down from the governor's office. He doesn't know what happens on Long Island. We have a whole different way of life here, and that's what's important. And I am very upset over the fact that we tried to put together a public hearing, and I had so many of my members, my business members, say, no, I'm sorry, Lenore, I don't want to speak. I'm afraid of retribution. Come on, we live in America. As far as I know, this is still the United States of America, and we should have a voice. And if we don't all band together and make that voice, we're really not doing our job as elected leaders, as presidents of the chamber. And I have to say thank you for the time here. I could go on forever.
Excellent sentiments, Lenore. I think that reminds me of a quote from Thomas Jefferson. When the people fear their government, there is tyranny, but when the government fears the people, there is liberty. So I'd like to get back to a time where elected officials are worried about what their constituents think and not the other way around. With that, next up we have Mike Wentz, the president of the Farmingville Hills Chamber of Commerce. Mike and his board have done such a fantastic job over the last, I think, 7 or 8 years, really building the Farmingville community, and I'm so proud to represent you. And Mike, thank you for being here. If you'd like to say a few words.
Thank you very much. Yes, I took it upon myself in 2011, along with other individuals in the community, to create the Farmingville Hills Chamber of Commerce, because we saw that there was a void. Local businesses did not have a representation. They didn't have a conduit between them, their workers, their employees, the people that were coming into their businesses, and the elected officials. Okay, I invested my own personal funds to create to incorporate it, to get it started. Anyway, safety and well-being. Those are the two terms we have heard, the two words we've heard over and over and over again. We social distance for safety and well-being. We cover our faces for safety and well-being. What about the people who can't pay the copay because they own a restaurant and they can't keep the restaurant open and pay a copay for their kid in a local doctor's office? If we want safety and well-being, it needs to be full circle. It not only needs to be for that business owner, but for the local people that they employ. All right, I love local. All right, I bleed local. Okay, I love being able to go to breakfast at Hilltop Cafe and see Legislator Picarillo come in. I like to be able to, go to Grill in the Ville and look over and see Assemblyman Doug Smith or a Brookhaven town official. Okay, they are the ones that know our community. They are the ones that spend their money in their community. They live in our community. They wake up and they go to sleep all in our community. No one knows best about what our community needs, what they deserve, than our local elected officials. Thank you very much for the task force, and thank you all for your time.
Thank you so much, Mike. Next up, we have Kevin Himes, who is on, I think, so many different boards working to better our community. Kevin is just a real cornerstone of this district and community. And as the president of the Ronkonko Chamber of Commerce, thank you for coming.
And thank you, Doug. And I'd like to thank all our elected officials and our fellow chamber presidents for sticking up for our communities and our local businesses. So here we are at 6 months into the pandemic, and all of these mandates and restrictions are coming down from Albany, and they have had a tremendous impact on us. And it is time that we regain the local control. Not only are many of our local businesses now no longer in business, and we miss our diners and cafes and small stores. We miss them all. A lot of them are going out of business, unfortunately. And because of that, unemployment has soared in this area. Where are these people going to get jobs? But besides those effects, it's affecting our local governments. Suffolk County, town of Brookhaven, they are not getting the tax revenues that we used to get and count on. So now our services will unfortunately have to be cut as well. So it's affecting all levels, private employers, government, mom and pop businesses. We're all affected by this, and it's time that we regain more local control. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Now, we are also joined by a few brave local business owners who may want to say a few words. So I know we have a representative from the Billiards Association. Oh, I should also note that represented by Grupo Laura Sellas here, representing Islip Town Councilman Jim O'Connor from the town of Islip. He could not be here with us today, but he supports local control being restored. Now, we have some representatives. If you'd like to come up, please, if you could just say your name and thank you.
Hi, my name is Melissa Passadenti. For the last 25 years, I have run the Suffolk County chapter of the American Pool Players Association. We have about 17 league operators that run leagues all over New York State. And when COVID first hit, we were all in compliance with shutting down our business. We knew that it was what we had to do. But as businesses started opening back up, we realized that there was no guidance for our industry. Pool tables are not allowed to be used in bars, but there was nothing spoken about pool tables and about our running our leagues. We have about 7,500 members that play in our league across New York State. We have 58 local bars and pool halls that are associated with our business that are also hurting for our league not being run. So we asked the governor to please let us. We have a Play Safe campaign across the country that has been rolled out, and it's been working very well, and a lot of other states are up and running and doing well. So we ask the same. We are just like a bowling league. We just asked for the same opportunity that you gave the bowling leagues to give us a chance to get back to work. Thank you very much.
That is just one example of a business and an industry that's been impacted by the fact that we are restoring in phases. We're now in phase 4. We went through phases 1, 2, 3. Now we're in phase 4. We're told this is the final phase. There are no other phases, but unfortunately phase 4 is going to be issued in phases. So I'm not sure. I guess we're probably at phase 6 by now. But we need to get everyone reopened. It can be done safely, and if you allow the county health departments and the townships to work with local communities, that will happen a lot safer and a lot better. There are areas in upstate New York that have flattened the curve even more than here. There were certain counties upstate that even during its height, they may have only had 8 people inflicted with COVID-19. They have different needs than we do, and we're asking that even their needs be respected and that local control be restored. We did have a few other businesses. I'd like to invite them if anybody else wanted to speak.
Me?
Please, Tony Mingoya, who is a longtime board member of the Ronkonko Chamber of Commerce as well, our entertainment man.
Yeah, I'll speak. I have another business, but the entertainment industry, you know how many people wanted to get married and have their reception? And what a huge disappointment knowing that you couldn't do it. And now that they're letting them into the reception area, they have to wear a mask. If they're going to dance, they have to be 6 feet apart, wear a mask, but you can not take your mask off while you're having dinner. I think that's absurd. Yes. You know, Long Islanders, we did what we were supposed to do. We sanitized every inch of Long Island. Everything is clean. You could eat off the bathroom floors in most of the restaurants. I think it's BS that we're being held back, and I don't like it. This is a free country, and we're being held back from our rights, and fear is taking over more than COVID. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. I think Tony probably said what we were all thinking, but we've maybe been a little bit too diplomatic to get there, but that's exactly, I think, what businesses are feeling. Was there anyone else who'd like to address? We had some folks from a local catering facility. I don't know if they're... Okay. Well, I just want to thank everybody. Are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions? All right, with that... Oh, yes.
Doug.
Yes.
You touched on it. The governor is a tyrant. Therefore, when tyranny becomes law, duty becomes rebellion. And that's what we got to do here.
Well,
we're going to take it to him.
Well, thank you for your comments there. With that, we want to thank everybody for coming and thank my colleagues in government and business. We will continue to push this. We are actually working on a petition website that will be rolled out shortly, so stay tuned on that. But we will continue this fight to ensure that the rule of the people and the rule of law is restored where it belongs, in the hands of local government. That's where our state has been established as a home rule state, and we're going to continue fighting for that. Thank you. Oh yes, did you want to say, Kevin?
This is all well and good. However, as I was asking some of the other people, if you have an issue with one of your businesses that's within your district, and you feel that maybe the state local authority is being a little bit arbitrary, a little bit capricious, maybe it's a situation where they're looking to generate some revenue, is there a point person on Long Island that you can speak to who represents the governor's office?
The governor does have a representative on Long Island, but he has also impaneled a group that is in charge of the reopening, which includes Suffolk County Executive Steve Ballone, Nassau County Executive Laura Curran, Kevin Law, who's the president of the Lion Association, and 2 others. So those are people that I hope that they will join our call to this governor and request local control, because
the governor has requested that every citizen in every business comply with this set of laws. Yet there is no protocol in place that I know of that any of our chamber members will be able to petition the governor's office to say, was this legitimate or is this arbitrary and capricious?
Now,
furthermore, as evidence, nobody from the governor's office is here today. And what does that say? That speaks volumes.
it does. So if for anyone who missed it, what Kevin Guilfoyle, the Vice President of the Holbrook Chamber of Commerce, just pointed out, under the situation we're living in, and this is another reason why we're calling for the restoration of local control, there is no due process. There's very limited due process. So if you are issued one of these tickets, which is written by a member of the state government, pursuant to one of his executive orders, no, that's not a law. An executive order has the force of law, but it's not a law. We make the laws. The state lawmakers in the state assembly and the state senate, we vote on bills that are brought forward, that have the ability to be commented on by the public, the people we represent. We pass them, and if the governor sees fit, he signs them into law. That is how a law is made. Under this series of executive orders, it has presented a big conundrum that there's a question of enforcement when it is arbitrary. And our Vice President of our Chamber of Commerce brings up an excellent point. How do you appeal that? So now if you were issued that ruling, it's very difficult now to appeal that decision. So that's something that is more of a reason why control must be restored locally. Our towns have code enforcement agents, and so do the county health departments. Those should be taken up at those levels, not by bureaucrats in Albany. If any of my colleagues would like to add anything at all, I would welcome that.
What about the possibility of class action lawsuits? You know, and they don't even have to be related businesses. You could have businesses that are landscapers, that are bowling alleys, restaurants, and come in and show an equal, you know, damage from this lack of leadership.
So if I may answer it, as well as being the Assemblyman and attorney by profession, and I will tell you the problem we're confronted with is under our New York State Constitution. The governor with executive powers is enshrined in law, in New York State executive law. He has the authority when he declares a state of emergency, which he has, to issue these executive orders, and courts will not disturb those executive orders unless they run afoul of the U.S. Constitution or the New York State Constitution. So if these businesses are going to go to court, you know, they're going up against the state, they're going to spend a lot of money, and I can tell you the end result now, because there's been some challenges. The courts will not override the governor's ruling on a state of emergency. What I think has to happen going forward is the legislature has to revisit the New York State executive law and the state constitution to see how it curtails the governor's powers when he declares a state of emergency, how long he can keep the state of emergency in place. Like right now, he still has a state of emergency order in place. That's why he's doing what he's doing. In my opinion, and those are many of my colleagues, there is no reason to have a state of emergency in place any longer. He's just drawing this out and drawing it out, and it's one way. You had raised the point before from the chamber. It's a one-way street with him. He can talk down. We have no way to go back up. So that's where we are.
Thank you, everyone, for coming, and I'll invite anyone from out of town to please enjoy one of our local businesses. There's some here in the immediate vicinity. Thank you so much.
Everybody together.